All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest webinar in our Just Add AI series. So for those of you who've been following the series so far, you'll have seen that this is a series that really focuses on exploring the possibilities and also some of the pitfalls of AI, and really looking at how you can implement it in a way that is going to get the best possible benefit for your organization. And again, those of you who've been following along will know that, Just Add AI is a very tongue-in-cheek title because very obviously it's not as simple as just switching AI on. There's a bit of complexity to it, and that's what we're looking to explore in this series. So my name is Kat. I'm a senior consultant here at Squiz, and I'm going to be hosting today along with Megan. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Megan Andrews. I'm a business design consultant with Squiz, working in the digital strategy space.
Awesome. And we're actually really excited to have a couple of special guests with us as well today. So we have Sam Gilbert and Jason Matthew, and these guys are really experts in all things conversational search. So we're very excited to have them with us. And they're going to be sharing some pretty amazing stuff that is now available in the DXP. So it's going to be a really great session. Before we jump into it, just a little bit of housekeeping. So we are recording the session and we're going to make that available afterwards. So if you'd like to rewatch or you'd like to share it around with your colleagues, that will be sent through after the session. We are going to be taking questions at the end. We're going to leave a good amount of time. So please, if you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A box. In the bottom, you'll see a little icon there for Q&A. Pop it in there and we'll get to those questions at the end. Any questions that we don't get to, we'll make sure that we send through those answers after the session as well. Yeah, and if you've got any questions or any problems, just pop them in the chat and we will try and help you out. All right, so before we dive into the actual session, I thought I would just provide a little bit of context for you guys, if you're not working with us currently, about who Squiz is. So Squiz is an AI-powered digital experience platform, or we call it a DXP for short, and we have offices in the United States, in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And our mission is really to make it super easy for marketers and developers to build and manage and optimize intelligent enterprise websites, as well as portals and app experiences. We offer a significant number of AI-bolstered capabilities, including the one that we're going to be talking about today. And those are really there to help our customers with things like content management, search, personalization, optimization, building out your visual sort of page builder experiences, and really anything that is going to deliver great experiences to your users and customers. All of that is delivered via a composable architecture. And what that means is that we can meet you where you are and we can work with the technology that you already use. So you can integrate all of your existing tech seamlessly into our platform to create a really seamless MarTech system. We've been around since 1998. And since then, we've been working with a growing number of organizations in both public and private sector. That includes government, higher education, professional services, and more. So that's a little bit about us. I'm going to pass over to Megan to provide a little bit of context about what we're going to be talking about today.
Cool. Thanks, Kat. So think of framing for search and where it's heading. And one of the ways we think about it at Squiz is that the answer economy is here. We thought a lot about, in the last 20 years or so, results and blue links on a page. But really now users are thinking about getting information very quickly in an answer type format. And if we want to really break this down, the answer economy describes the digital landscape where economic value increasingly depends on those who can deliver that relevant, reliable, timely, and contextual answer to users, rather than just throwing out content, products, or links. So these are just a couple of pretty impressive different insights that we've gathered. And if you think about user behavior right now, it is dramatically shifting. So if you see on the far left there, the 35%, even now in 2025, just about a third of all online queries have transitioned already into this conversational format. So whether you like it or not, users are quickly changing and adopting this new technology, right? And the 62 billion, yes, this number will continue to grow. I'm sure the value of the industry is huge and growing. But one of these statistics I think is really notable is this less than 90%. So if you're any brand, any organization, and you have a market share of 90%, you have done very well, right? But if you're Google, in particular in the search engine market share, and you dip below 90%, that's raising alarm bells. So what we're seeing is that that's happening. It happened for the first time in a decade this year. So things are afloat in the search space, and Google is aware of it and tracking that way as well. The last number you see over on the far right is, just the space of a year and a half. So November of 2023 to middle of this year, ChatGPT's weekly active users grew by 800%. So when we look at user behavior, this is not a slow creeping uptick. This is that real hockey stick effect of accelerating into this space, a new space of conversational search and LLMs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's very clear from what Megan's just pointed out that the market is shifting, customer behavior is shifting, and significantly as well. And so it's important for us to kind of consider, what does this really mean for your site in particular? What are the impacts of this broader market shift on you and your organization? And there are two main implications for your site that we want to talk about today. The first is that users are getting answers about you from off-site sources. So we've all heard of this concept of zero-click searches, right? People are going to these generative engines, whether that's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any other number of them that are popping up, and they are asking questions about your organization and getting answers in that environment. In some instances, that's not even translating to them coming over to your site. So they are getting this information from outside of your website. And then the second thing to consider is that when they do come to your site, they're expecting a very different experience. So as more and more people are adopting these generative AI engines, they're learning to expect the technology to do the work for them. They're learning to expect to be able to ask questions in a very kind of conversational, human way and get direct, contextualized, personalized answers. And so these two sort of shifts are really influencing what we need to think about when we're looking at your web strategy and architecture and solution going forwards. So to dig into those in a little bit more detail, the first is that we know that users are finding answers outside of your site. And in some cases, they're bypassing your site altogether. And it may feel in that scenario that, well, my website's not that important anymore because people aren't coming to the site. The reality is that is actually the complete opposite of the truth. The truth is that when people are bypassing your site, your content becomes the key to success. And the reason for that is that these AI engines are using your website as the single source of truth for information on your organization. So every single page on your site is essentially a training document for these AI engines. And it's really, really critical that your content is optimized in a way that is going to drive great experiences both on your own website, but also offsite in these generative engines. So we've all heard of things like GEO. That's about optimizing your content to perform well for ChatGPT, for Perplexity, for Claude. So if your content on your site is, for example, inaccurate or outdated or messy, that's going to translate into generative engines providing inaccurate answers. Or, for example, your content not even showing up compared to competitors. Because remember, these generative engines, they're a competitive space in the same way that Google search results are. So we need to be optimizing your content so that you're going to be showing up at the top of the list of universities that you should be studying medicine at, for example. We want to make sure that your key differentiators and the things that you want to highlight are showing up. And we want to make sure that as much as possible, we are driving users through to your website. So optimizing the content on your site is how you control the narrative offsite. Now, the second thing to consider is that users will eventually visit your site, right? So, generative engines are great for early stage discovery when people are researching and exploring and asking questions. But eventually, if they want to sign up for that course, if they want to apply for their passport, if they want to buy a product that you're selling, they're going to need to come to your site and convert there. And so the on-site experience is still crucial because not only do we want to create a really direct route from thing that I'm interested in to conversion, we also want to really lean into these new expectations that customers have around what your on-site experience is going to look like. So we want to move away from, that spaghetti on the left-hand side that you can see there, where users are jumping from your homepage to your search results page, to your menu, to various pages, and kind of bouncing around your site, trying to collate the information they need. And we want to move towards this very sort of direct, here's my question, here's my ask, and here's your answer. Because that in turn is going to remove all of that bouncing around and drive better conversion and better results for your organization. So to succeed in this answer economy, your technology really needs to support you in a few key ways. And I thought I would just run through these now because it's important to consider this when you're looking at implementing new technology, new AI solutions to support you in this new world. So the first thing it needs to do is really help you optimize your content. And that's both for your on-site experience to improve your user experience and your on-site search experience. And then also, as we've talked about, optimizing for offsite engines and GEO. The second thing that it needs to do is really lean into that customer expectation where people are looking for these effortless conversational experiences that allow them to ask questions in a way that makes sense to them and gives them personalized contextual answers. The third thing we really need to consider is that your technology needs to give you peace of mind that the answers that you're putting out there are accurate and that you are in control. So, this is something, even in the previous webinar that we did on accessibility, we had a bunch of questions around how do I know that the answers that we're putting out there are accurate? How do I know what my AI is using to come up with these answers? So, this is absolutely critical when you're considering new AI technology. And then the last thing here, I think, is, equally critical is a technology solution that can meet your organization where you are. So implementing AI is a journey, optimizing your content is a journey. If you've got, tens of thousands of pages, I'm sure you know that. And so you need tools that are going to meet you where you are and provide immediate value in a way that is manageable for you, but then are also going to grow and evolve as you start to embrace more AI, as you start to work through all of your content and really work with your organization on that journey. So we're going to pause there and do a little bit of audience participation. So we're going to pop a poll up. You should see it come up as a little extra window over the top of Zoom. And what we're interested to know is how easy is it for people to find accurate information on your website? So you should see some options there. Just pick the one that feels most relevant for you or resonates most with you, and then we'll have a look at the answers.
I appreciate, Kat, the idea that this is a journey too, because like we've talked about in this series, just turning on AI requires some preparation. And I was talking to a client in the US here recently who has recently pared down their site from 20,000 pages to just 1,500, which is a
That's insane.
huge accomplishment. I gave them a visual
Yeah.
round of applause. And that must feel amazing. And so I think that content optimization has been this burden. But with the right tools in place and with understanding the ways to optimize for AI, I see a light at the end of the tunnel here for websites.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just saying the other day, I feel like the rise in these generative engines is really the catalyst that a lot of organizations needed to kind of go, you know what, we've got to address our content problem. Because we all know, we've had a content problem of various sizes for many years, proliferation of pages, proliferation of content across our digital properties. And now is really the time where we have to go, okay, we can't just kind of put that in the too hard basket anymore. We've got to do something about it. Great. All right. So I think you've probably got a couple more seconds to pop your answer in there, and then we'll have a look at the results. Cool. All right. So it looks like our top result there is accurate content, but can be hard for users to find. Which is really interesting. And this is actually consistent with the webinar that we did yesterday had the same answer, which is interesting. I think that's probably a pretty good spot to be in, actually, in terms of if your content is accurate, if you've got really high opinion of the accuracy of your content, then you're in a really good spot because it's easier to fix, I think, the discoverability of your content than it is to go through, like Megan was saying, 20,000 pages and fix those. What do you think, Megan?
Oh, completely agree. Love to be in that boat. There's definitely, like I said, though, even if your content isn't in the right place, finding the right tools to help you get there as efficiently as you can. Not getting a 100-person team to start going through some audits for you, but harnessing the technology to help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay, so I'm now going to hand over to Megan to introduce some pretty exciting stuff that we've been working on at Squiz. Megan, over to you.
Yes, super exciting indeed. So we have a conversational search tool at Squiz, and what that you may know this is AI search. We call it conversational search. Um, and we'd love to show you what it looks like, and then also we'll bring in our product experts to explain exactly how it works. But what we'll do next is show you a video of just the front end experience of how users will interact with this tool. So you can see this is like a landing page, right? Where there's a pretty clear search bar right in the middle there, just beckoning you to go ahead and drop in a search there. And you can do this in a number of ways. This landing page is one of them. But once you hit that search, you're going to have this sort of, whoop, we're generating an answer from AI. They'll give you the response to your question up top and list the sources of where they got that information below. Now, just like something like ChatGPT, you can stay in this interface and engage, ask another question, follow-up question within this context, and the same process happens. You get your response, and then the results that it's used, the reference pages from below. So that was a quick video demo. This is a freeze frame, and again, our product specialist will go into much more detail about this, but what you saw there was actually a number of different things happening on the back end as well. What's happening as a first step, number one, is on the back end, the AI is actually reading your content. It's finding the sources that it can use and trying to understand from those search results at first what's going on, what does it have access to. Based on the results it finds, step number two is generating that personalized answer. So that's that nifty little paragraph that you get up top that you see as a user. And then number three here is we've added in this UI element of asking for feedback. Is the user happy with what they got? Are they not? Thumbs up, thumbs down. And then again, just that opportunity to ask a follow-up question in the dialog box below. So on the front end, there are two different formats we've created so far, although there's many ways you could customize this. But the first one on the left, we call an all-in-one or self-contained conversational search. So that's what you saw in the video demo, where it feels like a landing page. It's a dedicated space. And then on the right, we've called this the integrated or hybrid conversational search model. So you can imagine having your search bar on your website, whether it's just in the top fold or up in the top right. Users can ask a question or put in a keyword there. And if the AI has access to information where it's allowed to answer in that space or category, it can do a little summary up at the top. And then right below that, you'll still see the traditional keyword search results. So they can go in and click on the blue link, so to speak, as they're used to. So pretty seamless integration. And the one that we see that's most popular to get started is just hybrid approach. Now, the best part about this, and the one people have a lot of questions about, is, well, how does it work and how do we make sure it works? And our DXP does give you a lot of different areas to control this technology. So this is where I'd love to introduce Sam to let you know how everything's working on the back end.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Okay, so now that we've seen what the conversational search experience is like for customers, let's take a brief look at how it works under the hood and then talk about how you can control its behavior. So how does it work? Well, our conversational search uses retrieval augmented generation. This is an AI search technique that enables you to control the content used by large language models to answer questions. When a customer submits their question, we use the question along with the context of the conversation to conduct a search of your organization's content for relevant fragments of information. We then pass the question and suitable information fragments to the LLM. And this information, along with instructions on answer format and allowed disallowed behaviors, is used by the LLM to generate an answer. But before returning that answer to the customer, we use a second LLM called the Guardian Agent to check the answer. And it checks that each statement in the answer against your content and conducts a faithfulness assessment. If we can't verify that the answer is faithful to your content, then we return a pre-agreed fallback response instead. And so this process ensures that any answer takes into account the context of the conversation when generating an answer and is based only on your official content. All right, so that ability to control the process is one of the most important things you need when implementing AI, and a solution that enables you to put guardrails in place is vital. So let's have a little bit of a look at the controls you have when setting up Squiz Conversational Search. This screen shows some of the back-end configuration for conversational search, and there are 4 different guardrails you can set up. I'm going to go into those in more detail in the next few slides, but in summary, they are the ability to restrict the content used by conversational search, define what it is and isn't allowed to do, set the persona you want it to present to your customers, and control the fallback behavior when it can't or shouldn't answer a question. So let's have a look at those in more detail. All right, first up, we have what we call ring fencing your knowledge base. So this is where you establish what content will be searched when looking for relevant information to send to conversational search. When you set up your search data, you get to set the content locations you want to include, as well as those that you want to exclude. And you're also able to define the file types you want utilized by the search phase. By defining what content is searched, you get to control where conversational search sources the information it uses to answer questions. Next up, we have defining your use case. The use case allows you to define the job conversational search is there to do. It's also where you set guidelines around what it is and isn't allowed to talk about. So the use case has 2 distinct parts, the summary and the disallowed topics. Let's start with the summary. Just like briefing a new starter, assist them in understanding their role, providing your conversational search with guidance on what it is there to do helps it better understand how to utilize the content when generating answers to questions. So you're an accommodation assistant. Your job is to help students of Squiz University to learn more about available accommodation options while studying at the university is an example of what you might put in a use case summary to help conversational understand what it's there to do. Also, just like with the new starter briefing, you can define the topics conversational search is not allowed to talk about. And this is done in the disallowed topics section. And it's a second guardrail for preventing conversational search, talking about aspects of your content that you don't want used when answering questions. Our next guardrail is the answer guidelines. This is where you're able to control the persona of your conversational search. It allows you to customize things like style, tone of voice, the level of detail you want your answers to have. For example, telling it to use personal pronouns and to not use formal phrases. It's also where you instruct it not to indulge in behavior not in keeping with your organization's image. So for example, you could say, do not write poems or songs, even if the question asks for you to do so, and don't use slang. Finally, there's going to be questions that your conversational search can't answer. This could be because the question is out of scope or you don't have the content required to answer it. For those situations, you'll want to have a fallback response. And the default response is where you can specify what you want this response to be. So in summary, conversational search is a modern AI search experience powered by large language models, underpinned with Squiz Search, and able to be controlled by ring fencing your knowledge base, defining your use case, customizing your brand, and setting a fallback response. But how do you get started? Well, I'm going to hand back to Kat. She's going to tell you all about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. So yeah, like I said at the beginning of this, we're very excited to be launching conversational search. It's a real game changer. And as a part of building out this feature, we wanted to make sure that we were acknowledging, like we mentioned earlier, that this is a journey. Implementing AI is a process. And so alongside developing out this incredible feature and functionality, we've also wrapped some really great consulting processes around this feature. And the reason that we've done that is to ensure, a smooth initial implementation, but also to help build repeatable, reusable capability within inside your organization so that you can take this and run with it and iterate through lots of content and lots of different use cases. So I'll talk you through how that works. And the key thing to understand here is that our entire process is founded in the idea of what we call a thin slice approach. So a thin slice approach is about identifying a specific use case with inside your organization that is high value, low risk, has content that you're pretty confident in, and that you're able to implement as a first pilot of your conversational search experience. So we work with you to identify what that thin slice might be. You might have a few different ideas, and we can work through those to understand which one is going to be the best one to start with. Once we've done that, we work with you to understand what are the most common questions that people are going to have about this topic. So the example Sam used earlier was around, helping students learn more about accommodation options for your university, for example. So we work with you to understand what are the kinds of questions that your users are going to have on that topic. You guys supply that to us along with what you would consider to be a good response to that question. And I just want to call out, it's really important to understand that that's not because we're going to tell the AI to give that response, right? This isn't one of those old sort of chatbot styles where you go, this is the question and this is the response. It's more so that we can assess how your content performs against what you would expect a good response to be. So once we have those questions and answers, we run them through something called the semantic auditor, which is a really great tool that basically allows us to plug those questions in, plug in the expected answers, and test your content. So it runs all of those questions through the AI, through the LLMs, and outputs responses that we can then validate against what a good response looks like. And so immediately you can see that that's going to give us a whole bunch of really valuable insight into how your content in that thin slice is performing in that AI environment. So from there, we assess the content and we come up with recommendations and remediations to look at where does your content need a little bit of uplift in order to improve the quality of the questions that are coming out the other end. Once we've done that, we work with you to refine and improve that content, and then we're ready to launch. So you can see that that is a really repeatable process. So, we talked before about customers who have perhaps 20,000, 200,000 pages of content. It can be really overwhelming to kind of work out how am I going to work through all of this content and make sure that it's all sort of optimized for AI. This is how you do it. You do it one thin slice at a time and you work through it iteratively. So we're really excited about this approach. It's something that organizations can very much take and run with themselves after the first implementation. And it really ensures that that first implementation of conversational search is very, very successful. So I think it's clear, from what we've presented so far, that Squiz's conversational search is a tool that's really going to help you thrive in this new answer economy. And if you remember the slide we shared earlier, these were the 4 things that we said you really need to have in place from a technology perspective in order to succeed in the answer economy. And, I'll just run through each of these, but from a content auditing perspective, Squiz's conversational search solution is incredibly valuable here. As you've just seen, the process of implementing conversational search and using the semantic auditor means that you're already starting to pick up potential issues with your content and improve those iteratively as you go. What's more, once that conversational search is actually out there, you're getting real-time user feedback on what people are asking, what questions are being answered or not answered, what content fragments are performing well, what content fragments aren't. And so this is an incredibly powerful tool, not just for creating a really great customer experience, but actually for auditing your content as well. From a user experience perspective, as you saw Megan run us through, we have a really beautiful front end experience that leans into all of that sort of design pattern that people are starting to learn to expect. It's conversational, it's seamless, it can be branded with your branding, and is a really great way to provide customers with that conversational search experience on your site. From an accuracy and control perspective, as Sam walked you through, we have guardrails in place that really ensure that you have full certainty on what content is being used to generate those answers. You have full control over how the AI responds from a tone perspective, from a disallowed topics perspective, and you have that added security of the guardian agent. And I love that the guardian agent, I think, is such a great name. It just makes me think of the little halo on top. But you know, the guardian agent is really there to give you that peace of mind that it's checking every single answer that comes through and making sure that it's accurate. And then finally, you know, as I've just walked you through, this is a tool that can meet you where you are. So you can start with a really small, really low risk use case. Some of our customers choose to start with internally facing use cases, for example, to test the waters, to build the capability, to see how you go, and then you can iterate as you go. So it really meets you where you are and goes with you on your AI journey. So that is conversational search. We were very excited to take you through it. And now we'd like to open up to questions.
Yeah, we have one in here that I personally appreciate because I've come from the content world and I'm not a developer, right? So a lot of times when tools come out, I'm always curious how easy they'll be able to use for non-technical users. So I saw this one come in, which I think is helpful here. So are all of the guardrails and the backend easily set up by non-technical users? Some of those prompts looked like natural language prompts. So would we be able to control that without having technical or developer knowledge? So maybe Jason, this would be a good one for you to answer.
Cool. Which one was it again? Sorry, Meg.
Are the guardrails easy enough for a non-technical
Yes.
user to
Yes.
set up?
So, I think Sam showed it in her demo a little bit. So within the DXP console, we do have some pre-filled natural language responses or natural language kind of guidelines around the guardrails. So they are easy for non-technical people to put in natural language there. That does help the tool use those guardrails without needing any technical knowledge.
I think it's cool too, because from what I've seen and with what we've implemented so far, I was intimidated at first by like prompt engineering, right? This is whole category that's coming up with AI. So I was relieved to see that it's actually just natural language. Like you type in a word, like direct it like you would an intern. I think we, you know, kind of use that language,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Like, how would you tell the intern to do this on their first day? And you can type it in just like that.
Yeah, it's very accessible.
Love it. Okay. Here's another one that's interesting technical question. How granular can we get with specifying which content to include or exclude within the knowledge base?
So you can actually get quite granular. So much like for those of you who are already using funnel-back search, you can go right down to the URL. So particular URLs you can include or exclude if you like, or whole sections of a site or subsections of a site. It's really up to you exactly how granular you want to get, but you can go quite low.
And this is like maybe a little bit related. Can the Squiz Conversational Search tool draw on content or that's not contained within the Squiz CMS? Can we point it to our own knowledge base?
Yes, definitely. So anything that the search engine has access to crawl or that you want to push into the search index, we can use in conversational search. So those same two mechanisms we have at the moment that allow you to put anything that the search engine can get access to into the existing search indexes for traditional keyword type search are all still available for putting stuff into a conversational search index.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Sam.
Megan, there's a question that's come through in the chat instead of the Q&A from John. I can read it out if you like. How does this work on our actual site? Is it a separate page or can it sit as a hovering chat on the bottom right? If we go with the hybrid system, can they still refine their search by asking further questions? So I mean, I can jump in there. So how it works on the actual site, Megan took you through a couple of different options there that we have as standard. So one is, yes, having it as its own sort of self-contained page. So you would access that from a link on another page, for example, that would go to that page. So if you have a look at the the conversational search on the Squiz website. That's an example of what the separate page looks like, and it's self-contained there. It can also be that hybrid version where you can have it sort of embedded within your standard search results page. But that being said, the world is really your oyster in terms of how you might want to customize how you use this. So those are the two examples that we use and that we sort of offer as a standard and that our customers are finding work really well, especially for like an initial implementation, because there's less sort of development effort and customization involved. But if you want to customize it, we have customers that are doing all sorts of really cool dashboards and things, and really sort of pushing the boundaries in terms of how they're implementing it within their site. And yes, you can still ask follow-up questions, even if you're using the hybrid.
Here's another one that came in that's interesting. Do you have to have different searches as you start to do more than one slice? How do you tell users that you are searching only over certain content? So maybe I'll take a stab at this and then product folks feel free to weigh in. So what we recommend as an approach is this: build your slices one by one, right? So if you are working within that hybrid model where any user could go to your global site search, they wouldn't see like typing conversation. It's just really seamlessly integrated into the site as it is now. And there's a benefit to that in that if you start with just things, for example, about housing on campus, right? Or accommodations, that will generate, it'll trigger the AI response on the search results page, but otherwise it won't even appear for them. So it will be the seamless experience they're already used to. As you start to build this across more areas of your site, you might consider things like putting a banner on the front of your website that says, hey, check out conversational search. Maybe you decide you want to actually do a campaign around this, and it's around an enrollment period or where students are doing certain activities during the year. So you want to do a splashy landing page and direct them specifically to have conversation with you. So kind of depends on how you want to strategically roll it out. But eventually, hopefully most of your site would be covered by the AI search tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the hybrid experience, the easiest way to imagine that is if you think about how Google works now. If you Google something, sometimes you'll get that little AI summary and sometimes you won't. That's probably based on whether it feels like it's appropriate or whether it feels like it can give you a good answer or not. So in the same way, if a student asks a question that hasn't been included in one of your thin slices, they just don't get that AI response. If a user asks something that is included, they do get the AI. So it's very seamless and sort of a graceful fallback, which is why a lot of our customers are finding that the best approach for them because they feel they can roll it out in a way that is very seamless.
Yep, great point. Okay, one more just came in. We might have time for this one and then wrap up. So does the push train, the Squiz AI model, and would then be accessible to other Squiz customers who are using the same conversational functionality? So maybe this is a question about training. Is there an ability to train the model and are other customers able to sort of take advantage of that training? What do we think, Sam and Jason?
Yeah, probably one for me. So we do use generally trained models in the back end of conversational search. There's no kind of ongoing training on customer data. So conversational search is a RAG system, which is retrieval augmented generation. So we do use kind of retrieval mechanisms, as Sam has pointed out, like our funnel back product underpinning this with some semantic search and other smarts thrown in there. And so that's the retrieval part, is getting the content that answers the questions essentially. And then we use the model and the Guardian agents to ensure that we only provide answers from that retrieved content, but there's no kind of ongoing training here on client data.
And there's no cross-pollination. So what's used for you is used for you. What's used for a different client is used for them.
I think it's probably worth pointing out, these LLMs are not looking at your site and also going out to the wider internet to find information. We've said that in a couple different ways, but you set exactly what it can answer from. However, the use cases could be iterated across different clients, right? If we know we've created a slice and use cases and guidelines around, accommodation. We could do something similar for our next client that with a little head start on kind of what works best.
Yeah, so certainly the learnings that we get from customers about what should be in the question guidelines and disallowed topics and that sort of stuff, we certainly utilize that learning when talking to clients who are looking to do a similar thing in terms of saying, well, you should definitely have at least this set of things in your disallowed topics. And in fact, the UX itself has a template in there, a starting template in there that has a set of things that are commonly should be included in your disallowed topics, etc. In order for it to known cases where we know if you don't have these in here, the large language models will not behave as you're expecting them to.
I see one more that I think is worth wrapping up on because it is a big concern with AI. Is it 100% hallucination proof?
Do you want to talk to that one, Jason?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to understand the process here. So we do a couple of things around ensuring that the question is a valid question to prevent prompt injection and things like that. And then on top of that, we generate the answer. Now that generation of the answer is where we do have those concerns around hallucinations and things. And that's where we also have the next step in the kind of flow of our retrieve of our RAG system is that guardian agent. And so we actually like validate that there aren't hallucinations in there. So I think nothing's 100% ever. Like we live in reality where there's kind of infinite possibilities, and I think like if I was saying it will never hallucinate in, if you ask it 17 million queries, it will never hallucinate on a single one of those. Probably I'm lying, and anyone who can tell you that their LLMs are hallucination proof, I'd take that with a grain of salt as well, and they're probably lying too. With that said, we do have very strict controls in place to make sure that when there are hallucinations in that answer generation, that we essentially bail out of the flow and return that default response. So is it 100% never going to hallucinate? No. But we've got some really good guardrails in place to prevent that from happening, to first limit the hallucinations that happen in the first place and then catch them if they are happening.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, that's all we have time for. However, I have seen a few extra questions come through, which we will absolutely make sure that we answer, and we'll send all of those answers through along with the recording after the session. So thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to attend some of our future webinars, I highly encourage it. We're continuing with our Just Add AI series, so keep an eye out for information on those. Feel free to follow us and connect with us. And if you are just dying to get started, which I know I would be, please email us at ask@squiz.net. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.